This design calls for a path made of paving bricks running from this point here up to a landing or porch and then into a house. If I zoom in on the area of the paving bricks and select one of the pavers, you may be able to see that there seems to be some sort of overlap going on here. What I'm going to do is, it's maybe difficult for you to see, but I can almost see some doubling up running through this area here. What I'm going to do is to change the draw order of that paving brick, because I suspect there's something behind there. So I'll go to Tools and Draw Order and send this one to the back and that one to the back, maybe even that one to the back, because now when I pick here, we have it. There's a line running through here and stopping at that point. So be aware that if you see what looks to be an overlap, there may well be, and there may well be one line sitting right on top of another line, so that the draw order can help you select that sort of line. If we pick this line here, can you see it does the same thing? It's running through there. So I suspect that, I was going to say that those two lines were done in that way and might have had the same endpoint, although I suspect they do. If we go from there to there, that's probably a horizontal line. So these original lines may well have been there when the drawing was first being laid out, but they're potentially creating a problem because we cannot select them. So I think for the moment I'll select that line, and we notice that the angle is 226.87. It's a tricky angle. This one here, 226.87. Just want to check there. Oh, that one, 226.87. So clearly they're parallel. So if we want to put some more paving bricks in along there, we're going to need to set some sort of drafting angle so that we can copy the paving bricks quickly and easily. Next thing I'll do is jump in here and just have a little look. You can see here, if that represents one paving brick and this one another, you see that the gap between the line, which is meant to indicate the edge of the path, and the bricks themselves varies quite a lot. Let's just check the gap between the pavers by using the distance command, and we'll snap near here and go perpendicular to that point. The gap 9.097, so 9mm gap. Maybe that's meant to be a 10mm gap. If we come in here and do the same measurement, we can measure and pick that point up and then go perpendicular here, we get 7.112. So the placement of those paving bricks along that line, really it's almost been done by eye, so there's a little bit of variation. So what I'm going to do next is create a block of one of the pavers. You can see, if we look over here in the properties box, the length of the paver is 600mm, so it's a 600mm paving brick. So what I'm going to do is make a block of one paver, then I'll set the drafting angle and we'll copy the paving bricks along that line. You could array them or simply copy them, and based on that rather unusual angle, which I'll now just jot down, 226.87. I've changed the background colour of this drawing. I don't recommend doing that in a general drafting sense, but it should make it a little easier for you to see. And just before we begin working on that paving brick, I'll select this block here, which is meant to represent a hedge, and I'll right click and select rotate. I just want to make that align more closely with the boundary here. So I'm asked for a base point, so I'll click there. So I'm going to rotate, and as I get the angle that I want and do that, notice what happens. The rotation angle has picked up some very strange angle. I'll undo that, The reason that's happened is that if we come over here to settings, the draft has left object snap on and the endpoint option on, and I'll cancel from there. You can see that osnap's on because down in the status line the little block indicator is red. When you're trying to manipulate objects, you do need to be aware of these settings. Polar tracking has also been left on, and that can also influence things as you work with the drawing. So we'll take osnap off for the moment. When you're learning, I'd recommend that you leave objects, and you can tick that box if you like, and then swing it in and out like so, but I would recommend just doing single osnaps. So if I want to rotate that one as I did now, I can go rotate and just, whoops, it's a little tricky there, I need to get further away like so, and then unselect all. So that, I think, works much better. Now let's return to the creation of a block that we'll use to run along that angle. So there's the 4 lines that make up the paver. We'll right click and create a block, give it a meaningful name, 600 paver, and for a base point, let's pick some convenient point. I'll choose the bottom left corner, but you might prefer to pick a central point or midpoint here, but for the moment I'll pick that as a base point, and we want to convert that to a block. So now when we select it, you can see over here its name is 600 paver. So now we can dive in here, and I think we can remove some of these existing pavers. We'll probably have to do this in a series of steps, so let's erase and take out that one, and this one, and we'll erase those. So we now have a relatively clear deck. I'll leave those original lines in position. Now I've lost my endpoint, haven't I? So what we'll do is extend this line through there, or extend that one to the boundary. So modify, extend, this one's the boundary, right click, pick that one there. We could then measure the distance, the width of this. It should be 600, I guess, but let's check. We'll measure from near, pick up the osnap nearest, which means it locks in there. Let's zoom in, and we'll go perpendicular to there. It's 599.514. So I'd be inclined right now to erase that one, and we'll go modify, offset this line, right click, pick distance, type 600, OK, and indicate the side. So now we have a precise 600mm path ready to put our paving brick in that position and copy and move it along that path. It makes sense to use some of the drafting aids in gCADPlus to make copying this block, this paving brick along the line. If we pick this line here, which I've drawn over the top of the black line there, its angle is 46.87. So if I right click now and go to drafting settings, we can delete that angle. We can add a new angle, 46.87, and whoops, 46.87, and we can OK it. And I can OK that. So polar is on, it's showing red down the bottom. Let me zoom in here a little. What I had forgotten to do was to say we're going to enable a distance step, and we'll make the distance step 610 millimeters, 610 units. That'll leave 10 millimeter gap between each of the paving bricks. So we'll OK it. Now we can select our paver. We can say copy, pick it up at its base point, and as we track along here, I'll zoom in. We can get the 45-degree angle, but we can also get our special angle. So there's the 45. We clearly don't want to go that way, but we want to track along. And you see how things click into position, and then we go click again, and I'll finish and just zoom out a little, unselect all, and just zoom in. We've now got a precise 10mm gap between each of the paving bricks, and the paving bricks run neatly along. So it's going to be a relatively simple matter to align them correctly along that line. Another alternative way of doing it would be to use the array command and do something similar, array a whole group of them, and then just rotate them to match the line that's already in position. One thing you might like to do is to select the block, right click and pick edit the block. I'll just zoom out a little. We could choose all of those lines. We could join them, so now we have a polyline. We could change their colour. We'll leave it on layer hardscape. We could pick some sort of colour for the paving brick. Maybe you might want fairly pronounced colour, and we can say filled, and it is. So now when we return to the drawing, there's our paving brick running along that line. We don't need that line anymore, and we probably don't need the baseline or that line, so they can be erased. So it's a comparatively easy matter now to copy those using our new angle and be able to move them to that point. You might want to end up with a neat finish near the end, and you might want to vary the gap between them. If, for the sake of argument, you wanted to have a wider gap and leave space for some planting within that gap, all you need to do is right click, go to drafting settings and say, well, we'll go 650 and OK. Now when we copy this one from that point, we can stay online and it clicks into that position. So now we've got a wider gap, and we could of course put some planting within that zone. We could even make a block of that and copy there might be some mondo grass, liriops or small planting species, and just copy them across. So I hope that helps in learning to use some of the drawing aids and being aware of their status as you are working.